I'm Gemma Lloyd and I'm the CEO of WORK180, and I'm here with Stamatis from the Fourfront group to talk about their focus on diversity inclusion and how they're creating a balanced workforce. So before we get into that, Aki, would you tell us a little bit about Fourfront Group?
So Fourfront is a collection of businesses I was just describing to you before, and I kind of think of us as this kind of collection of tribes, and what we do is workplaces. So we create workplaces. We design them, we construct them, we consult on them, we furnish them, we put the technology into them. But very much we work with the people in those businesses in create their homes, because in a sense, that's what a workplace is to me. It's the home for a business.
So you were recently listed as an agent of change. I think that was from the Women's Business Council and Management Today. Can you tell us a bit more about that accolade and I guess why it was important to you?
Yeah, it was a surprise actually, but a very pleasant surprise. Well, I think construction is not an easy industry if you're female, and you can very easily get stereotyped, particularly even in our little subset of it, which is kind of looking at kind of workplace and interiors. So for me, when I thought about getting this, and I guess what led us to connecting to that and the accolade, as you so kindly put it, it was really, how do you get the most potential out of the business? In a business that, as I say, is relatively small for us. We're totally under 300 people. It's just getting the max out of people, and for them to get the max out of working here as well. And you can see how the kind of a male perspective and a female perspective kind of leads you into different places and different issues. So a lot of the thinking that I had was, how do I make that better? And it was great to be recognised for that, and then start to hear about how other people do it. So you learn all the time.
Just drilling into some of the specifics, I guess, of that. I mean, I know there was a Women in Fourfront initiative, I think, that you were responsible for a few years ago.
Yeah. It's now in its fourth iteration. It's about to be. I mean, that was very specific, very targeted. So what I was really keen about was that we thought about what are the issues that if you're female, in this place in particular, you have. And it tended to be about, it's about confidence, it's about communication, credibility, contribution. These were the 4 C's that the whole program was built around. And we went from a place of having nobody on our board who was female to having 4 people who were on the board that were female. And Women at Fourfront, I do honestly believe, made a big difference in that. And the feedback that came from the people who did the course was great to hear, and I think also that's an interesting, because the kind of alumni club of that has created quite an interesting network. So its job was to remove barriers, and also I really felt give confidence to the people on the course that the business was interested in removing those barriers and actually could put its money where its mouth was in that sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fantastic and amazing to see the results of that, of then having 4 women on the board. Did you receive any pushback from the business with this initiative, any challenges?
Yeah, I got the question, why isn't there a men in Fourfront? But that was very obvious. So that, apart from that, not really. I mean, I think
How do you respond to that question?
What we thought about it, because actually a lot of the issues you think about, that take the 4 C's in that way, equally true for male. So for me, it was never about it's kind of positive discrimination. It was about how do we get potential again, and how do we liberate that. So I think there was never pushback from the business. My kind of co-directors and the kind of co-founders of the business kind of got it straight away, and it's good for the business. So this was a kind of hard-headed business decision as much as a kind of aspirational one in that way.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And you've mentioned a couple of times, you've used the word potential, which I really like. Construction industry is obviously quite male-dominated, and so you find if you're looking for people with experience in a particular field, you may be hard-pressed to find a woman in that particular role. So is that something that you look for, potential over experience?
Yeah, I mean, one of our 10 truths, if you will, that we set up something. We have something called the Fourfront Way. One of them is aptitude and attitude, and the importance of one against the importance of the other. You can teach one, but you can't really teach the other. So I think that's about potential getting the individual. So if the individual we see potential, then I think that's as much a buying signal for us, in a way of saying, we think this person may not have the right skill set, but we can teach them some of that stuff. What you can't teach is that innate personality, if you will. Do they fit into our business? Do we think they will go places? And if they're female, all the better. But I go back to that kind of hard-headedness in a way. We want the best candidate because, in a sense, that's what creates the business of success, which means we can do things like Women in Fourfront and invest in that kind of training.
Mm-hmm. And how do you make sure that you're getting the best candidate, and I guess removing, sort of unconscious bias and things like that through the hiring process or talent management, succession planning?
I mean, we try. And it's not perfect by any means. But I do believe, once you've established this in a way, it kind of seeps into the business. So I kind of like to think anyway that, as a business, we do think a little differently about how we recruit now. And that's been true now for a number of years about, who's the right person to fit this business, what is the kind of diversity part of that? At least we consider it. Where I'd say, I can still think of many businesses, I think, that just don't really, or if they do, they pay lip service to it. So I do believe we've shifted, but it's a long way to go.
One of the things I guess WORK180 really tries to promote, whilst we're all about finding women that jobs with companies that will support them, we also like to do a lot around including men in things like taking parental leave or having the ability to work flexibly to pick up their kids from school, for instance. And what does Fourfront do around that, if anything, around that space, around supporting men in different areas?
Yeah, I think we do that. We kind of address that. I'd like to think again that the business is flexible in its approach. I've gone away. One of the things I feel is that one of our strengths is going back to this idea of we're kind of not a big business. So this is a very human interaction. I particularly feel that sometimes HR get in the way of that in a way. You have to have a policy for this or a rule for that. And we've got rid of a lot of that, actually. And I've kind of wanted to bring the business back to people talking to each other. So if you've got kids to pick them up. Why wouldn't you? It's a kind of, it's a situation we're all in. This idea of a business having this kind of parental role of telling you what's good for you, I've kind of wanted to move away from, and we have moved away from it. So our kind of the remit that our people team, as we call HR now, kind of have is different, and that relates into everything from recruitment. So the people are gonna, if you're gonna own that person, they're gonna come and work for you. Then you do the recruitment. We don't offload it to somebody else. So the whole outsourcing piece, that kind of logic, we've kind of gone away from a little bit to say, well, actually, it's a much more kind of direct communication. So if you need to work from home, work from home. Mm-hmm. It's all about productivity. It's all about output.
Yeah, I absolutely love everything that you've just said there, because it's amazing how many organisations are stuck in the dark ages and still look, you need to be 9 to 5 chained at the desk. But I guess with the work that Fourfront does as well, you must be working with a lot of organisations who do understand why flexibility is so important and designing different workspaces to be more collaborative and also allow for that agile.
Yeah. And that's the big word, collaboration. I think things like collaboration, community, culture. All these kind of C words again are kind of at the heart of any good workplace. I think so. Not every workplace is the same. The environments can be very different. The other enabler to that is technology. So can you collaborate if you're at home and I'm here? How do we? There is a physical piece to that, and I think that industry and the evolution, of what a workplace is, and even that kind of marketplace, has shifted a great deal. And I think that helps the whole kind of diversity argument, because as soon as you create that flexibility, then clearly that's a whole different agenda for, do I need to be at home? What do I do? My parents, my kids, what is it that's kind of driving my life as much as work is?
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any clients that you work with in particular that have asked you about flexible working, that you see as particularly good in this?
I think, we have some clients who ask us. The questions I've been asked more recently, particularly, have been about this kind of alternative view of how HR might work, which is kind of seems to have resonated with a few people. One business I came across talking to their CEO doesn't have HR at all.
Wow!
So this is a 300 person business with not a single HR person in it. And his argument is, as soon as I have HR, people start to kind of, HR are going to sort that out. It might be a bit extreme, but you can start to see the dynamic behind that. So I think we see everything from businesses that are like that to the complete other end of the spectrum where, the rule book is big and there's a policy for everything. So it's from what we do, it's an interesting task because if we're going to do our job well, we really have to get to know a business well. And in a sense, you can't fake that either. You really get to understand what the DNA of that business is like. So you see, what is the real diversity in that business, for instance? What is its attitude to that? What is its attitude to flexibility? People talk about flexibility, but they don't really mean it. They don't really want it. And you need to get to the bottom of all those questions to at least produce something that is a successful kind of workplace.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. It's one thing to have a flexible working policy. It's another thing for it to be lived and breathed and accepted across.
Yeah. And again, we're not perfect at that either. And if the manager and the managed, as it were, that employee relationship will vary because again, once you start delegating to say, well, this is an individual relationship we're having, we're at the mercy of individuals in that sense and how they are. So.
Yeah, that's very true. So with Fourfront and it's all the partnerships that you're creating globally, have you seen anything in other regions, other countries that you take inspiration from when creating a great workplace?
Well, I was mentioning Australia earlier,
Yes.
And I think there's a number of lessons that I think come out of that I've certainly seen. Some of the most interesting workplaces I've come across have come out of Australia, or are in Australia rather. And I think there's something about that kind of live to work, or work to live kind of logic. But I think it is about flexibility again. I think that's a good word in many senses. So one of the great advantages of the United Workplace, which is the alliance we have with other businesses globally now, is just how they do it. How is it different? And even if sometimes you learn something very clearly and it's there in front of you, but I think also you get these kind of unconscious stuff seeps in as you see what happens in the States or what happens in Australia, for instance, or the Middle East I mentioned. And more interesting now kind of in Latin America for us, which is a whole different ballgame in that way. So I think our DNA is kind of slowly changing as we sort of come across all these different ways of doing things.
Yeah, for sure. And how important is things like well-being and mental health at Fourfront?
Yeah, that's a big thing for us. Well-being is a kind of on the agenda for lots of conversations, and it kind of seems to mean all things to all men in many ways. But for us, mental health is something I think that's important. It's something that gets talked about a lot. We've trained up a number of our people to be what I would call mental health first aiders. So to me, it's an interesting concept of first aid is kind of a physical first aid, but also that can be a mental first aid. So that kind of first response almost of someone who's got issues or had an issue and just wants to talk or needs some help. So we're kind of very much part of that kind of it's okay to talk. We're a pretty open business anyway. It's not a hierarchical business at all. Most people can say most things to just about anyone in the business. So that helps. But it's something that we're aware of, and I think there's much more awareness of particularly mental health in terms of what we do day to day. In terms of well-being, I mean, that is now become an industry almost of its own, the well-being industry. But everything from, the yoga class and the Pilates to, Fitbits to you name it, we kind of part of, and we do. And it's interesting now we consult for other clients in that sense. So again, in terms of designing that into a space, designing that into a workplace, how do you design a well space? What is a well space? And I think that conversation isn't going away in terms of light, in terms of air, in terms of water quality, in terms of everything that you experience when you're in a space. There's much more sense of that actually is what contributes to your well-being as a human.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think this has been really an interesting conversation. It's just amazing to me how easy this seems for you. You're very relaxed about it. It's just like, oh, this is just what we do. This is what the people are like here, which is wonderful. Do you have any pieces of advice, parting words for people that want to make diversity important or have a more gender balanced workforce or board?
I think it does come from the top. So I think you need to get your leadership inspired if they're not. So I think that's a big thing, and that's true. Even in get back to what we do, that's you need the leadership of the business sets the tone. I think in lots of ways, good and bad, in every sense. But I also think it needs to be a business decision. There's a financial kind of hard-headedness to this. And it can't just be an aspiration or a wish. There needs to be some real kind of drive behind it that says, I can see how this is going to pay off in all senses. And if it pays off for the business, it'll end up paying off for the employees, I think, if that business has got any sense anyway. So that relationship becomes kind of a two-way one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.